And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at one of my most anticipated games from Essen 2018, and that's Underwater Cities. Now this was anticipated for pretty much one reason, and that's the designer Vladimír Suchý. Vladimír Suchý came out with probably my favorite game from the previous Essen, which was Pulsar 2849. He's also done some fantastic games like Last Will and Prodigal's Club, and he has this makes these good crunchy Euro games. And the reason I think I like his Euro games is because the theme is usually fairly interesting within them, but he also offers a dizzying array of choices. And so that's kind of what I was hoping for here. Now this one he went off with and kind of started his own company and made his own game. So this is a first time production from them as far as I can tell. Very interested in trying this one out, of course. Let's take a look. The goal of this game is to get the most points, as it is with many games of this type, and you're going to be playing through the game in 10 rounds, and between rounds 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 there's going to be a production phase, also a production phase at the end of 10. Each of these different phases is going to have a different deck of cards. You see deck 1 is already out there, deck 2 will replace that during rounds 5, 6, and 7, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of really cool special cards that are going to be worth victory points at the end of the game, and another pile here. And players are going to be starting with some cards that they're going to be picking from a handful of cards at the beginning of the game, along with their own personal board. Now each player can choose kind of a generic personal board, or you can play with a very different kind of an asymmetrical setup on these. And on these player boards, you're going to be trying to build different cities, or kind of special cities, and spots to travel in between them. Sometimes when you put something on the board, it will give you a reward. And there's also players going to be starting with some random tiles on the board that when you connect those to your network, you will also get some sort of benefit and possibly a special ability. Now this is the main part of the game, and on each player's turn, they're going to be taking 3 actions. They're going to be placing out these tiles. There's tiles for each of the players' colors, and you're going to be picking one of these actions that's surrounding the board. When you pick that action, you get to take that action, but you also must play a card from your hand at the same time. Now what you're trying to do is you're trying to play a card that matches the color of the action you're taking. If you do, then you get to do whatever that card says, or in some cases you just get to play the card in front of you and it gives you a special ability for the rest of the game. But if it does not match the color, then the card is simply discarded with no effect. And at the end of each turn, you'll be drawing more cards, and so you'll have a handful of cards you'll be able to play. You also will have some cards that are action cards that you'll put in front of you, and every time you get to take an action, you can pick one of these cards. Each player will start with their own specific card that goes with their color. So for example, this gives me 1 resource or 1 money whenever I take this action, and you can have a total of 4 actions in front of you. There are cards that give you permanent special abilities. These you can have as many as you want, and each of these is going to increase your actions as you play them. So when you look at the different tiles and the different spots around the board, some of them, like this one here, and over here, they're just going to give resources. Other of them are going to let you build maybe the domes or the different transportation routes that are on the board, or to put little buildings in the different cities that you have on the board. Players will be building a network starting at the very beginning and connecting and building these things. Sometimes you'll be able to upgrade things, and the upgrading and the different buildings that you're going to be building, maybe I'll build a science building here, maybe I'll upgrade that, a kelp building here, maybe I'll upgrade that later on. And this matters because during the production phases, the different buildings are going to be producing based on whether the building's a normal building or whether it's been upgraded. They'll be giving you these. So for example, this building here cost me 1 kelp to build it. During the production phase, it's going to give me a kelp. If I've upgraded it, so there's 2 of them there, it will give me a kelp and it gives me a victory point. That's pretty cool. And if I have 2 of these buildings in the same spot, 2 upgraded buildings, it gives me 3 kelp and 3 victory points. And so you can see that if you get 2 buildings of the same type in an area, you will get, and they're both upgraded, you're going to get a lot more points. At the same time, having diversity can help you for victory points in various things. And a regular dome city doesn't give me any production, although it can be worth points, while the upgraded one is going to give me 2 points during the production phase. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can build things, also keeping in track that sometimes when you build on top of something, it'll give you points, and connecting to these tiles here will also either give you points now or at the end of the game. It almost seems sinister to say that's it, because there's really a lot more going on in the game, but those are basically the basic rules. You're going to be turning turn order. You get to move up on this track here. Moving up on this track gives you benefits and will allow you to go first. But everything else then is about these cards. And so sometimes when you play these cards, they're going to give you an immediate benefit if it shows a lightning bolt. So like immediately here, I get 1 steeple class, that's one of the resources, for each 2 connected desalination plants you have. So if I have 2 connected desalination plants, I get 1 of these. So when I play this, I get a whole pile of that if I play it at the right time. Or here, I can immediately pay 1 science to build a tunnel. So there's a lot of these immediate actions. There's other, like I said, permanent special abilities. So here, whenever I build a symbiotic dome, the upgraded city, I get a discount of 1 credit for the rest of the game. There are also cards that say if you, for example, don't match the color, you'll get some sort of bonus. And then there are these cards, which are only going to happen during production phase. So for example, here it says during production, I get an extra kelp for every 2 connected upgraded laboratories. So that if I have some upgraded laboratories. Here, this one just lets me move up on that turn order track and draw 2 more cards. This one lets me draw 3 cards, but that gives me more opportunity to get exactly what I'm looking for. And then I also mentioned the action cards, which whenever you get something that lets you take an action, there are things on the board that let you, when you go to that spot, you get to take an action. And then this one here will give me a point and a resource. So there's a lot of different cards. All the cards have different things that they're going to do. The cards are different from deck to deck. When you go through a production phase, at the end, you'll draw cards from the new deck, but you can keep some of the old ones if you want to, if you think that they'll help your abilities better. There's also some contract cards here. This is like a little expansion that can be added to the game. In a 4-player game, you can use the same spot that someone else used on the board once. That's what this tile here is for. And at the end of the game, you're going to add up and go through a lot of different ways to get points. So there's a whole little scoring card here to how many points different things will get you at the end of the game. And whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, the components for this game are not bad, but I do have some problems. First of all, I needed to, as you can see here, I have laminated all the player boards and the player aids because they were pretty thin. The cards themselves are quality, but I can live with all that. These domes are really cool. I like how they look on the board. These little buildings that you can build are also cool, although they don't stack as nicely as I'd like them to. But the biggest problem with this game, and from what I understand, this will be fixed in the Rio Grande English version of it that's coming out, are the resources. So you look here and you see the different resources, the kelp and the iconoclast and the different resources here. And these resources, there are 1s and 3s. The problem is the 3, first of all, there's way too many of the 3s and not enough of the 1s. You constantly have to make change. Secondly, though, when you look at this pile here, it's pretty hard to see if the 3s are part. Is this a 1? Yes. Is this a 1? No, that's part of a 3. And so I found this to be problematic because, again, you are constantly having to change resources out. There's no way. People are running out of them all the time. And the 1s and the 3s are the 3s. I just wish the 3s didn't exist. I just wish the 3s were all 1s. So that's my biggest problem with production of the game. There is a lot of symbology on the cards, but at the same time, most of the time, for example, this symbology is here at the top, but then it tells you exactly what it does at the end. You may pay 1 credit to upgrade one of your farms. All right, well, that's pretty simple. And the pictures and the artwork, I do like that, although they do repeat it a lot throughout the course of the game. So, you know, this Black Ops team looks the same as every other Black Ops team that's in the set. But, so for the most part, I don't have a problem with the components other than this and the quality of the cards. Now, Underwater Cities is not a perfect game. I already mentioned a few component problems with it. The other problem with the game, and this may not be a problem for you, is that it's fairly lengthy. To the point where it says on the box 40 minutes per player. That's probably not incorrect. Now, what that means is it's a pretty long 4-player game. But as a 2 or 3-player game, it really hits that spot. And I even played it with a 4-player game, and it wasn't so bad. But all my other games were 2 or 3. It's very in-depth, this game. But at the same time, it's not so complicated. In fact, quick shout out to the rules. I often get very irritated with games when I read through the rules. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to figure out this game. These rules are so complex and complicated. Underwater Cities was not. The rules were really well written. This game was very easy to figure out considering the complexity of it. So we often yell about bad rules. Let's hear some shout out for some good rules. And so the game itself is not so complicated. On your turn, you're playing a card and picking an action on the board, and you're trying to make the card match the action, but sometimes you really want to take an action and you don't have the colored card to match it, or you have the colored card to match it, but you don't want to play that card just yet. So that's just simple. But then, of course, there's that dizzying array of actions. There's a lot out there. Now, the player interaction in this game is not going to be huge. It's basically going to be, Bob just took the spot I wanted. And, Susan took that spot, and I was going to go there. And you're battling also for a turn order, which can matter. But other than that, there's not a huge amount of interaction between the players. I don't really care. I'm sitting here building this really cool underwater city network. And you can really concentrate and just build a small network, but there's tons of buildings in each of the cities that you have. Or you can try to stretch out and connect to those spots. And as you're going through, you are building this array of cards which can do all kinds of cool things. When you get to the end of the game, you're like, yeah, look at this neat thing I've built. A lot of people have compared this game to Terraforming Mars. And I can see that because as the game goes by, because I play this happens and this happens. And I have action cards and I can make any one of those go off. But they also feel like very different games. This is a more slower, methodical game, which has a set amount of turns, and you are trying to do things. I mentioned those special cards that are on the board that are worth points. You can buy those cards as one of the actions that you can take. They do take up a slot in your hand, and so you want to get them out on the table as quickly as you can. They're expensive, and by the way, money's real tight in this game. So are resources, until you reach a production phase. This is a fascinating economy that's in this game. You are playing through this game and you're like, oh. At first you start with a few resources. You got some cards that give you some more. And then that first production phase comes and you're like, yeah. You just get a whole pile of resources. Woohoo! And they run out like nothing else. You're like, whoa, it's like kind of like get that bonus. I got a Christmas bonus! Where'd it go? And that's how this game feels. You're like, I got all these resources and they're gone. Then the next production phase hits. You're like, yes, I'm in the money. And then you get it all back again. Wow. Neat game. This game is not one that I would even come close to saying, I know the best strategies for this game. Like, comparatively, Terraforming Mars, I think I've played Terraforming Mars enough now. I can sit there and go, yeah, I know what to do. Underwater Cities, I'm still learning, but I think that's a good thing. I like the opportunities that this game presents. I like that my hand of cards is going to be different, so every game I have to adjust to what I want to do. Each game is going to be very different. The other players may start a certain strategy and I say, I see that they're going to be going for that resource. Let me try one of the other resources. Oh, they're not really fighting over turn order. I got cards that say when I move up in a turn order, I get benefits. And as you get these cards that kind of increase the power of specific actions, you'll find yourself taking those actions more and more. Still a lot of depth to be discovered in this game, no pun intended. A lot of fun. Underwater Cities, I highly recommend it. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!